expertise, but I would venture to guess that what we see, like the co-optation of, or domestication of indigenous national self-determination struggles that we see kind of really like consolidate itself from the 70s into the 80s and into the 90s, with struggles over state recognition, like constitutional legal struggles and so on, is probably happening, but just at a different scale, and that's at the UN now. So, like some of the core, some kind of hegemonic institutions or structures are not challenged. They're kind of left in place. So you have like a system of kind of settler states. You have a certain political economy, and these sorts of things are not really things that are being, at least from our perspective in white settler states like Canada, the US, and so on. So I think there's probably an argument that can be made where where kind of some of the concerns that phenomenon recognition would raise, or that I raise in my book, could probably almost be like almost writ large, just applied to the UN, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the struggles therein. And I think it's pretty clear that's the case now that you have Canada sign on as an official. Like, if that's the case, and I think it's actually a contradiction in terms. It's a performative contradiction that Canada is stating that it will, it has to state, we will affirm or enact the Declaration, and then the next sentence within the Constitution of Canada, because the two I don't think actually can exist together. But in the same way that our constitutional struggles in the 80s, or struggles over land through land claims and so on, it provides a kind of an appearance that it is doing things which structures our interests in certain sort of ways that are hard to disclose, even to ourselves. So I think the same thing happens at the level of the UN, and this is not surprising given it is kind of the institutional sort of legal international structure of imperialism. There's a lot of critical IR literature that just demonstrates that. So I think it's happening. All the stuff that I'm concerned of that's happening here is now kind of being institutionalized at the level of international law.
Yeah, a lot of questions. I'm not sure I heard them correctly, so let me just... the question about productivity, I missed that. Where is it? Here, hang on. There was a question, but I wrote it down about if capitalism becomes more productive, can it incorporate everybody? I think it's actually the other way around. The more productive it becomes, the less it incorporates, because productivity from a micro level is a substitution for labor. You can raise output without raising the amount of labor. And one of the key points in the argument in Marx about why it creates a reserve army is that productivity growth is a part of the process of feeding the reserve army again, other things being equal. The question of the employment capacity of capitalism is different from the question of whether there's wealth. Because the employment issue is at a micro level. Every capitalist incentive is to cut costs, cut wages if possible, cut the number of workers if possible, to produce the same product, which is increasing productivity. But the net effect on the aggregate depends on how that translates into growth of the system. Now, I don't want to belabor that point here, but I do discuss it at some length, the relationship between productivity growth of employment, and what holds that. And the basic answer is that employment growth is driven by profitability, but of course it's reduced by productivity growth. So it's a balance of the expansion of the system and the productivity growth. Can capitalism accommodate everybody in the world? Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by accommodate. Will it do it naturally? No. Will it do it possibly? I don't think so.